Dominion over all things. Go. Go. Ready.
Good morning. This is WSTX 970 AM. It's good to be here on this side of the planet, this side of Earth, and there's many things that we can talk about, but let's talk about the things that we can actually do and something that we're doing about. Um, we're trusting that our system is going to cooperate today with us. The interface is going to cooperate to some degree. Should we have any calls, I want you to understand the way the show is being done. There's a possibility of a 6 second delay sometimes. And if there are any questions or any statements being made, it's a possibility it takes 6 seconds, 3 seconds for me to actually get full clarity on what's being said. Given the nature of how we're doing this show this way. So we hope that the interface is going to cooperate all across the systems and all across the platforms. That being said, I would just like to make a statement, and it has to be said that WSTX do not own the rights to the music and contents. It belongs to its rightful owners. This is an election year, and politics as usual is in the air. People are going to make themselves present on political issues. They're going to come before you making promises they can't keep. And at some particular point in time, as people being given intelligence by the Almighty God of righteousness, maybe we'll get to a place where integrity will meet the intelligence, where you would open up your spirit and your mind for clarity and truth, not for political favors and speech being said so that you can be liked or not liked, and they're doing things and saying things to get a vote or trying to say things to tell a truth, and you're going to give a half truth so as not to upset people. Truth is a constant, and I don't know why. Well, I should say I do know why it's hard for people to deal with truth. And in a climate where you have a body of people who have been systematically, historically under an oppressive status, and part of the oppressive status is to introduce culture, traditions that would seek to give strength to the oppressive status that we are currently under. And that status will seek to even employ individuals to help or to keep the status as is. And you know the saying, wolves in sheep clothing. That's very old. And sometimes in this society, in this colony, in this quote unquote civilization, there are people who are born to do that. And it doesn't matter who they may be relative to association. They're just born to be that way. They're born to be deceptive. They're born to be selfish. That's a characteristic that you can't even differentiate between bloods. And it doesn't matter. And that's why we have to get to a place where we're not respecter of persons, meaning respecting somebody just because of a relationship or a status. Respect people for their deeds. And keep in mind that we are only as honest as the Almighty God of righteousness knows us to be. Because too many people like to believe their own lies. Too many people have hidden agendas. Too many people have egos beyond the norm. And it is a culture, and it's not unique to the colony. It's not unique to the territory. It's not unique to this society. It's all over the planet, only heavily concentrated in some areas. You have choices to make. It is now in the Gregorian year 2026. The Gregorian calendar, anyway, where most people subscribe to, right? You can't continually, and some people you would hear things and you would stay amazed that they're hearing problems and they're hearing issues, and they themselves year after year participating in it, and you want to know if you're in a warp zone or if you're in the matrix, because the more things change, the more they remain the same. And if you don't put a stop and a check in honesty, you have the hypocrisy in people. And it's a profession and it's a trade. It's an art with some people, naturally. In the territory right now, we do have a progression. It is a change, it's a shift that's actually occurring under your watch. What part are you going to play in this shift? The more things change, the more they remain the same. However, things do change. There's two existing economy in this colony right now. Two. One that doesn't benefit the masses, and one that benefits the minority, the transient, those who are seeing value here that the majority here who are in the local economy can't see. And then you have people who are born to appease a colonial mandate, a colonial ideology. Yes, they look like you and they look like me. Yes, they're family. Yes, you went to school with them. Yes, you dated them. Yes, they're your spouse. Yes, they're a co-worker. Yes, they have some sort of paper of identification of education and at some particular point, learning. Yes, they're thieves. Yes, they're murderers. Yes, they're pedophiles. Yes, they're sex traffickers. I'm not making this up. It's not like these things are going without receipts. And I guess too many people, and it goes according to who their spirit and what their spirit is, choose to live by what appeases what pleases them, uh, what allows them to benefit in a climate where pedophilia is being recognized, where theft, lust for flesh is a requirement for work in a government that's supposed to be representative of a people. And it just so happens that, yes, the government is a reflection of the people. Whoever chooses to say that the current governor is whatever adjective you choose to use to define him, that adjective applies to the people. A foolish people is led by whom? Can't be a non-foolish person. When are we just going to speak truth? Is that so hard? Yes, it is, right? If you have to balance out truth from non-truth, what portion of this population is living by truth and non-truth? People, again, are walking around with a sense of entitlement. And with that sense of entitlement, they seem to focus on progression, and ego comes into place, and envy comes into place. And while they're doing that, the very territory, the colony that they should be taking the energies to be protecting, isn't protected because they're on a personal, satisfactory colonial mission. In the process, the land is being taken from under you because you're busy trying to fill the seats that the colonizer left behind, trying to reflect massa, figuring that putting yourself in these seats is a big accomplishment. And for some people it is. Write home about it, that they have accomplished these seats in these governments. And while those who are not benefiting, who are the majority in the economy that's not here pleasing anybody, those who see and who are benefiting from the other economy, where their monies are not being hurt, there is no lack from that. They're coming in here by the droves. That's why they can look at St. Jonians in their face and not give them power for 48 hours. It's all a conditioning. It's all a test, subliminal and otherwise. Get used to and get comfortable and recognize this, because when St. John went without power for 48 hours and up, there were people who that didn't affect. And in the meantime, St. John, where per capita on the island, how many billionaires and millionaires live on our island, they have a problem with the distribution of utilities. Why? And we have people in the legislative bodies who are supposed to be doing the bidding of the people, are doing bidding not for the people, but doing bidding for the transients who are coming here and who are actually setting things because they're connected to the movers and shakers who actually make decisions throughout the world. But we have people, local people, who are more in those bodies, taxing and coming up with legislation to do otherwise than to offer relief. Everything is to tax the people, make life difficult. That's all who is there. But we can't complain that We have people in the legislature right now who are doing these things. And if you ask them what legislation have they brought forward to show any kind of relief, really relief, where people don't have to be obligated to be in stressful position unnecessarily, so there isn't any that they can honestly say. But you can't blame it, you see, because those same individuals who are in the legislative capacity and the executive capacity and in the judicial capacity, they come out of the bag here in the territory. They don't come from elsewhere, right here in the territory. And while this shift and change is occurring, to the extent where in 5 years, there's people who are coming into the territory, they're not coming here to be part and to be with you and to be with us. They're not coming here for that. And in the process, we have those who are actually here accommodating it. And the only reason why they can accommodate that is because that's the spirit. That's who they are by spirit. Recognize that. The Mingo Tamarins who are around us, qualified to bring destruction, qualified to make sure that the status of running a territory, independent of a colonizer, remains. Almost a fleeting illusion as far as they're concerned. And yes, there's more evil people in the world than there is good people. That's just the nature of things. But things balance out from time to time where it's even and sometimes it's lopsided, right? But you ask people right now to come forward and make your elections known. Put it on record where you stand on issues. Because the events that are occurring right now are not events that we're reading that occurred 200, 300, 400 years ago, 50 years ago. It's happening right now, today. And we are only as honest as the Almighty God of righteousness knows us to be. So people don't like truth no matter how you deliver it. It's not going to be accepted no matter how you deliver it, no matter who delivers it. And if you think it's okay to live in a world where somebody is going to have a bigger weapon, and because they have a bigger weapon, they think they have a sense of entitlement to take what's yours, then don't complain about the crime in the territory. Don't complain when somebody who has a bigger gun than what you have, if you don't have any, put it in your face and take away from you what you worked hard for and what is yours. Don't complain. Lawlessness doesn't stop amongst a certain type of people. When the young people, the young men and the young women are discharging firearms, artillery towards each other with the possibility of killing each other, unaliving them, it doesn't stop with them. It's going to find its way right into those who think that they're exempt from this type of thing. They're protected from this kind of behavior. No, this place is lawless. It's going to come to the doors of the legislators and those who are in the offices because that's just the nature of the beast. It's just that you haven't really fully understand that that's the direction it's going. And they're doing this for a reason, but you have to understand that a lot of the things that are occurring, they're not occurring because we only have people with that type of spirit. They're occurring because there's a good mass of people who are actually running the state and the affairs of the world. And the only time there is a resistance is when there is an international standing on what is right. It is the power of the Almighty God of righteousness. That's how it works. And that's why there's a restriction on people trying to move in between places. And that's the reason why they tell you you need this document to travel here, that document to travel there. has nothing to do with what they say and the things that they invent. It's equally like when they tell you you need a license to broadcast over the air because they have a restriction on the air and the frequencies and they control them for what purposes? They say for security purposes. How is that? Since when do you control it on frequencies? But you buy into it because that's the way the governments of the world control what the Almighty God of righteousness give you, and you have a right to have. But people, again, you have to understand the nature of beings. You know what it is like after many years of conditioning on strategically done and deliberately done indoctrinations. The Willie Lynch syndrome, deliberately done to cause discord amongst people, accepting that there is going to be a fight between color of skin, height, hair texture. And over the years, you buy into it. Before you know it, you're fighting amongst yourself from a system that someone else designed, put before you to keep you that way. And that syndrome perpetuates itself from the time it's being introduced and recognized and used. Today, it's in the fabric. It's embedded almost into your genes now. You do these things regularly. The Stockholm syndrome, where you start to defend your oppressor. Those who are keeping you over the years, manipulating you into thinking that it's okay, to the point where you would aggressively defend your oppressor against somebody who's trying to relieve you of being oppressed. The Stockholm syndrome. It causes cognitive dissonance, where you try to rationalize in between the two, and at the end of the day, you're going to rationalize based on the condition that's been oppressing you. The phenomenon of following. And because the majority have been doing these things, you automatically follow. And you believe things, and you come to present things not having any knowledge of things, but that's the direction that the majority's been going, so you insist on you're going to follow. Look into these things, the Willie Lynch syndrome, the Stockholm syndrome. Look into them. They're real. Look into cognitive dissonance. That's real. Results of. Look into the phenomenon of following. And that's where we are right now today, where truth is being brought before you and people are refusing it and accepting it on certain levels or applying it only where it satisfies them. Truth is a constant. Doesn't apply to how many friends you have, what circles you have, what tribes you're a part of. If you are, if you're not, what organizations you're into. It begins with you, self. Jen, if there are any calls, you may want to let me know one or two ways because of the problem we have with the interface. Sometimes I am not hearing you. And even though it sounds like it is on my side, when we communicate, I can't hear you. However, you can hear it on the regular broadcastings. So if we have any calls, I'll take them if they're there. If not, we could always reason. But people, last week I was trying to cover it, I'm not sure to what degree. People got through with it, but we're trying to make statements relative to the intelligence agencies. And the intelligence agencies, many of them, the average person, have no idea that they exist. And some people who think that they know that they exist don't know how they interrelate. And it is a minority of people who actually knows. And you can't get into the general populace and discuss these things with people because people, again, the Willie Lynch syndrome, the Stockholm syndrome, cognitive dissonance and the phenomenon follow, will buck up against it. They will refuse it because they are staying steadfast in their ignorance, meaning lack of information, not having access to it. And in this colony, where we're under one of the world, I don't like to use superpowers, but we're under one of the recognized states, an imperialistic state at that, the same state that tells the world that they don't give a damn that they have colonies. And it's happened over the generations, even with individuals who have made those claims, not being alive right now, but the ideology over the generations has remained steadfast, where they're telling people they don't care that they have colonies, but they're quick to tell the world what they're doing wrong. Talking about the United States and the corporation itself, the United States of America. We're not talking about America. We're not going to get and allow ourselves to be confused with what America is, because people are referencing things in ignorance of what America is, what the United States is, and what the United States of America is. Three different distinct things. And sometimes they use them interchangeably. And that's when the colonizer and the devil is smiling. So we're not talking about America. If I have calls, Jen, I'll take them. Okay. I thought I saw an indication here that they were called. And people, we're not talking about America, because in ignorance of what America actually is, we seem to use the term figuring that it is representative of the United States. It's not. America is a people. And it's not the people who you think America is, based on the years of indoctrination of them controlling the narrative, the history book, the TV shows, the representative images that they've been putting in your head over the years. But America is an original people of copper-colored and ebony-colored people that over the years, assimilation have taken place, where people are now, if you ask them who is an American, many people will just close their eyes, and in their head they are going to see an Anglo-Saxon, Nordic, and the rest of the Baltic states. They'll see that in their heads. Labeled European, labeled white, labeled Caucasian. All these are labels that are yet to be clarified in people. And as we go through progressing, trying to make changes in the Gregorian year of 2026, we have people who are charged spiritually to not pay attention to these things, because it's the here and now is what they think they're controlling things. And again, this is where the cognitive dissonance comes in, where they're trying to justify a wrong. And at the end of the day, it's just because of where they're benefiting, and the fact that over the years, the experiences and the tactics being used to have them conditioned that way. But you can only be conditioned that way if your spirit allows for it. The Stockholm Syndrome, the Willie Lynch Syndrome, the phenomenon of following. And you have bodies of people who runs the world, who are aware of this, who have spent money and time using churches to do it, using universities to do studies over the years, and having hard receipts as to how people are going to move and what they're going to move on. One of the things that they smile about is the election systems. And people are so charged, they're so enslaved into the process that they would take on these position and stance to defend the fact that they have a right to vote and a right, and voting is only, that's the only way things are going to change. Well, I would challenge you to vote to change your moral behavior in this colony. Forget about the rest of the world for now. Vote to change that so that you don't have eyes on somebody else's spouse, and you don't have eyes on a little child, and you're not stealing. Because when you vote to put people in there, all these behaviors are going to change, and that's going to change the results of when people get into these offices, right? And it's too scary of thought. It is too scary of thought because of the indoctrination process, the Stockholm again, to think that if you don't do these things, the whole world is going to fall apart. And that's why the negative energy, the devil, Lucifer, Satan, that energy is smiling. And no matter what's being said, we are only as honest as the Almighty God of righteousness knows us to be. And some will hear things and don't care. Their spirit is not going to register to do something, to react, to change things, because of the immediate reward that they're getting right now, the materialisms, the flesh-isms, exposing the children to people at best who advocate with receipts, beyond advocate, who agitate for pedophilia, bringing the children around those type of energies. And the funniest thing is that you can't even talk to these children, because them very same individuals who are exposing the children to all of these people who carry that type of energy, you can't even correct their children. You find that out years later, that when you correct a child as an adult, people are holding things against for you correcting the child as an adult. And that's why some of them children wind up in jail for theft and for murder, because that's the ideology that they have. Living positive is only relative, according to what you think positive is. But it's your deed that proves what you're living positive or not what you think and what you say. Some people believe their own lies, and they get adamant about it, they get aggressive about it, and that's the only tool that they use to keep on perpetuating the lies. But it's the receipts that shows what you're doing. And that's the kind of society we're in. That's what they're exposing our children to. We talk about the Epstein, and you'll hear it. Everybody has not let this Epstein issue fall. But if you check, really, they have not even made the effort to correct that type of energy that would bring that scourge of sexual molestation, human trafficking, organ trafficking into this territory. They have not corrected that energy that would attract something like that. Because the last time we checked out to see what our legislative body is like, they were bent right over. They bent right over till they're giving keys to somebody because he has a large following, who at best trying to prove differently now, writing things of lewd sexual suggestions to the women in the territory. And they figure that's something to reward about. And in the meantime, there are other people in the territory who have done things to elevate our children and not being recognized. So it goes from who's in the legislature at the time, from time. So it shows you who is there now. And those legislators who are there now come right out of the same territory. So you don't change people because they're in those government. You change them before they go into government. You don't expect people to change because the last time we checked, the government is not a body or institute of any religious faith. But here we are. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Worrying about gas prices now. Why are you worrying about gas prices now? And some of you only going to worry about it if it affects you. And should it go away tomorrow, you're not going to worry about it's not affecting you today, but tomorrow it's going to affect somebody else. So you're going to still advocate for it? No, because they've already done the studies to show where you are in spirit. What are you going to succumb to? What are you going to be interested in? Those who have ears to hear, let us do. It's political season. And if anybody could tell me that current aspirant as well is not going to tell a lie and is not going to promise something that they can't deliver, well, I stand to be corrected. They might tell us honestly trying to bring a change, and you will find out that when you get in there, you're either going to do right or you're going to do wrong. There's no in between. That's why when some of them get in there, you realize that they can't deliver or they don't change because they find out that it's a system of balance. What are you willing to compromise with and for? And it'll be easy for you to do that because as a aspirant and as a politician, you seek to appease people to get their votes. So many are willing to do and to associate themselves with people just to get a vote. So if you play politics as usual where you don't stand on truth and you want to associate with demons just to get the demons' vote, how do you expect to change things when you do get it? You're coming out of the same territory, in the same pool where everybody is living, how they're living accordingly. What's your moral level? To what does that compass look like? And you expect people to change when they go into these offices, right? It doesn't work that way. You can see it before you right now. The current governor signed an executive order 540-2025, and it's an order on ethics and conduct. Very well written, very well expressed as what to expect ethically to conduct yourself while you're an agent or worker of the government. Very well said, very well written. What is to be expected, how you're supposed to conduct yourself with ethics. That's the purpose of it. And while the governor did that and signed it in January of 2025, he would have already violated 95% of the ethical code that he wrote an executive order for. I am not making this up. I am not speaking well against the governor. I am speaking facts and truth. The D's are there. Speak about being inebriated, using certain language while representative of office. That was already done. I can go list of all the receipts are there. I urge people, because it is a good document. But how many people have integrity in this colony, in this society, in this quote unquote civilization, to actually conduct themselves with ethics? And some of you are not going to like it because some of you are complicit in the behavior. Everywhere you go in just about every agency and department of the government of the Virgin Islands, there is somebody stealing and misappropriating funds, if not work assignments. There is no checks and balances between interagencies for anything solid. From the roads being constructed, being attended to, they bring before you this nonsense of a semi-autonomous. There is no such thing, people, as a semi-autonomous anything. You're either autonomous or you're not. And they will seek to tell you that, yes, there is. He don't know. I know fully well. And I don't like challenging people because majority of the time they always show up wrong. That doesn't make any sense. Not here for that. There is no such thing as a semi-autonomous agency. Even if they put things in language before you, you're either autonomous, self-ruling, or you're not. And there's a very easy proof of it. Let's see who knows this. WIPO versus the Port of Authority. Competency in the law, competency in what's reading and in the history will explain to you. There is no question, there is no such thing as a semi-autonomous agency. Oh yes, show me. Well, this paper says it. This statute might make a suggestion to it, and because the paper says in the statute it exists, it doesn't exist. The agency is you're either self-ruling or you're not. You're either private or you're government. And maybe we're going to get into these things because a lot of it has to do with how we understand words. And if I say it's either public or it's private, a lot of people think that public means private, and public doesn't mean private. And all of it has to do with where the context is being used and written. Public means government. And they use it interchangeably, and it's a divisive tool to have you believe that when they're talking about government, you think that they're talking about the people. And it's very easy, right? If you're going to be honest, when you say people instead of saying public, or you say people instead of saying public, you say government. Why can't they just say government and people? So public is introduced to have you think that when they say public, it means the people. And you would get up, those of you who haven't done the searches and the research to have comprehension as to what it is, will say, that's not true. Public means, well, you're speaking things out of the state of not knowing, which is just being ignorance. And if you elevate your ignorance to stand on it, then that's defined as stupidity. Not that I'm calling people out of their names and I'm calling people, but let's just deal with what things are. So in a progression of time, I don't know, Jen, if we have any callers, make it known to me. We have different ways to communicate that to me, because lately on the interface, I have not been hearing you. However, it's being heard elsewhere that we have callers. So callers, if you have been calling in, I wouldn't know the way the interface is set up. So Jen, if we have any calls, do let me know. I don't want people to be discouraged trying to call in and they can't, even if there is a 6 second, 5 second delay. And people do understand that the way this broadcast is being done here, that there is a 6 second delay, and we do have problems with the interface from time to time, right? What are you going to say? What are you going to do with the Virgin Islands? And we're not that bad in comparison to other parts of the world, trust me. And when they talk about the crime here and people give you all these things, the United Nations, that's all false information, believe me. Per capita this and per capita that, and don't buy into that. The devil is smiling. I know that somehow in some part of the day, I'm going to get a good spiritual relief. I know that. I can't wait for it anyway. It's like a bad thing. You get used to getting discharged by seeing and hearing spirit. So it's going to happen. Yeah, people, we have these bodies, I'm sorry to go off on that are actually running not only the nation, but they're very much involved in the day-to-day of the affairs of the world. And it's not new, it's old. Some of them are, they're actually companies and corporations and families, their universities and their churches, all involved in how the affairs of the world move. And it's not satisfying the masses. There's a very small community who does that. And even though within themselves, they have disagreements, and when you hear the Luciferians are fighting the Satanists back and forth, they'll fight, but it's all in protection of what they're interested in, quote unquote, their world. And as a result, the masses don't realize that They have implemented things having you believe that you're participating in change. And the more things change, the more they remain the same because nothing has changed. So we're in a system in a year now where politics is in the air and limitedly having full knowledge of the affairs of the world with the intelligence agencies. People think that their participation, though honest and intentional for good, they think that that participation is what actually is bringing the results of what they want. No, the metrics are there. You don't have to agree and you don't have to like. You don't have to do anything because the fact is that that's a truth, whether you like it or not, whether you choose to ignore it or not. Some of us know. Things just happen to be what they aren't. And when we get to a place, because if we keep on giving all our energies to a system that's not going to benefit you, nothing is going to change other than the characters, because that's how life is a progression of people. People live and people die. People rotate, they get tired, they get burnt out, but the system never really changes because at the end of the day, someone still owns you. They're still telling you where to walk, where to do, how to jump, what to eat, what not to eat. You're in a territory where, at least in St. Croix, we have enough fertile soil, and nobody, as of yet, given the senators, one of them being a wife of a farmer, has never implemented anything sound. Today, all kinds of promises from commissioners all over the years, nothing, no one has produced today a sound agricultural economy to sustain the VI itself. When how many 90% of the food we're importing, where you don't believe that the day is going to come when they're going to be sending, and they're already sending bad food, but they're not going to be sending anything good on a regular basis.
Top of the hour.
When are you going to now at least understand that eating and agriculture is fundamental? Do we have a call, Jen?
No, it's top of the hour.
Again, Jen, if you're speaking to me, I can't hear you. So whatever you're doing, the mic there, if you're talking to me, I can't hear you.
Top of the hour.
I can see that something is being said, but I can't hear you. Check your mic if you're saying something to me.
Top of the hour.
Can't see, can't hear you. I know you're saying something, but I can't hear you. And there's a possibility everyone else can, and the broadcast can, but between you and I now, I can't hear anything. Yeah. Okay. And people, we will be right back. We're at the top of the hour. Few words, and we'll be back.
Stand up for the law. Stand up for decency. Stand up for compassion. Stand up for respect. Stand up for your community. Stand up for your future. Stand up for humanity. WSTX FM 100, the soul of the Caribbean.
Whether you're looking for a locally owned restaurant with good vibes and good people, a place to grab a meal to eat at events, a domino game, or dinner with the family, Chicken Shack is the place to go. Lorraine Chicken Shack is open 10:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Wednesday and 10:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Thursday through Saturday. Lorraine Chicken Shack, Your chicken tasty, suck my. Hughes Photo in the Sunny Isle Shopping Center has been a household name on St. Croix for over 25 years and is still standing firm in meeting the needs of the community. Passport and immigration photos, restoration, business cards, plus Hughes Photo can handle all of your prints from your digital cameras, phones, CDs, USB drives, and portraits. Hughes Photo, locally owned, takes pride in our work, and if you want it done right, see the experts at Hughes Photo in Sunny Isle Shopping Center. Call us at 340-778-6827 or visit us at www.hughesphotoonline.com. AM 970, WSTX, Christiansted, Fredericksted, and the Virgin Islands. St. Croix, guess what? Morgan's Grocery is back. That's right, Morgan's has made its grand return, and it's better than ever. The grand reopening with low prices, clean and good layout at the Bare Spot Shopping Center. For over 20 years, Morgan's has been your local go-to spot, and now we're back with all your favorite local goods. Plus more, we have the items that you can't find in the large stores and get more for your dollar at Morgan's Grocery, Bare Spot Shopping Center. Stock up on your vitamins, supplements, and all the island essentials, including pig feet, pig snout, saltfish, herring, bananas, avocados, and so many more specials. Yes, Morgan's Grocery is back. See you there. Professional service with pleasant personalities and good prices is what you get at Morgan's Grocery at the Bare Spot Shopping Center in St. Croix. News Talk for the Virgin Islands, AM 970 WSTX.
Sound of the crowd in my ear. You might ask what it takes to remember when you know that you've seen it before, where a government lies to a people and a country is drifting to war. And there's a shadow on the faces of the men who send their guns to the wars that are fought in places where the business interest runs. On the radio, talk shows, on TV, you hear one thing again and again, how the USA stands for freedom, and we come to the aid of a friend. But who are the ones that we call our friends? These governments killing their own, or the people who finally can't take anymore, and they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone, and their lives in the balance. They're all people under fire.
Yeah, people.
Children at the cannons.
Lives are in the balance. And when you think that your government is not lying to the people, we keep on living that way. And every year, and every election season, and every decade, the government is lying to the people. The more things change, the more things remain the same. That's Jackson Brown. And Jackson Brown wrote that in the mid-60s. Lives in the balance. And the more things change, the more they remain the same. Different set of people, same moral value, same application of ideology. And the recipients are there to receive it. The neocolonialists, the sycophants, those who are naturally born to be slaves, willing to do master's work, willing to do the colonizer's work. The Willie Lynch syndrome leading, I should say the Stockholm syndrome, also creating the Willie Lynch syndrome. Here come cognitive dissonance via the phenomenon of following. So the less information you have, the more inclined to follow. And that's why many of you are waiting for the saviors, They're waiting for the heroes and the sheroes, somebody to come and lead you. The phenomenon of following, trying to rationalize of the two, and there isn't any good of the evil, cognitive dissidence. Being brought on from what? A series of oppression based on what your spirit is going to allow and not allow, based on what? The Stockholm Syndrome, over and over progression, phenomena of a human being, a mentality, using what? Tactics created to have you divide against yourself, the Williland Syndrome. Look these things up. Read, comprehend, and don't read them and comprehend them to go on social platforms to put these things as if that's where you were, because I know a lot of you have been doing that. I don't follow it, but people will call and send me things from time to time. Why do you do that? Why? Learn the things to know it. Learn the things to fight against it, not to look to get credit for things and knowing things. It doesn't work like that if we're supposed to be progressive people. Knowledge put to its proper use. That's why you have to be mindful who is out there doing any kind of bidding. It is not a matter of who is doing what to get the result. You have to realize who is doing the doing. And if you can't separate that, there goes part of the problem. The colonizer is smiling. Because many of you on this world theater right now, where colonization is terroristic, it is evil. It is a scourge that promoted in many ways, still doing it, castrating men, raping women, murdering children. Robbing people of them being favored to be born on a land where they're supposed to be stewards of the land, killing them for their stewardship. Imperialism at best. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's not part of a history that happened 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago, 100 years ago. It's happening right now. That evil right now, where you're seeing people looking to bomb and kill people and trying to justify it for what? For elements that people are born on a particular land, a steward of, and you're killing people violently for it and then trying to justify it. And you want people to be falling into that just because you're benefiting on a little nonsense called political status in a colony, and you feel well accomplished. You don't speak for many of us, those of you who want to ignore this. Make your election known, because you still have the hypocrisy in people speaking about the value of a 6th constitutional convention, having them perform on the 5th. Hypocrisy. Be careful who does things and why. Quid pro quo. They're evident that there's Negroes there, the Sambos there to do and elevate it to the point where some of you are recognizing now where an issue of a statement, a factual statement that's before your face is not even allowed to be expressed. They're not even inviting the energies to the shows. People, be careful who does things, when they do things, and why they're there sitting in this seat. That's why you have to be so careful of who you allow to participate in anything that's going to liberate a people. Because they're still in the territory trying to put themselves as the popular person in the local talent show so that their efforts can be rewarded, and that's it. In the meantime and in between time, the town of Frederiksted, where they're calling Freedom City, that has been a loving and open place for everyone to walk and get love, under their watch, the land is being taken away from them right now. But they're more keen to watch what liberation looks like in absence of their hypocritical participation or acknowledgement. And that's the only energy that they have. There's a new economic development zone that's being introduced here by the governor. And the whole zone has been changed right before your eyes. It's happening right there in town. Ground zero for it, and the little introduction for it is the section there in town. I can't remember the cross street where the old Holy Land was, and that whole area back and forth. That's evidence of the new economic development zone that the governor has already introduced. Where is the issue on the shipping registry and the international commerce, the transshipment ports? Where will be a clearinghouse for the world economy to move goods and services via the sea trade, to have a clearinghouse here in St. Croix, in the territory. You know what that looks like? You know what that's represented? We have a container port. You know what the size of a container port is. You know what you're susceptible to, having containers come in here that you can't fully 100% monitor. And then the governor again now doing what? Introducing Wall Street, a division here in the St. Croix in particular. But you have more energies trying to participate in an unlawful generating of a sixth constitutional convention that at best have people on it who's not supposed to be on it. But here you go, you bunch of sabos and sambos and coons participating in this and trying to justify what? Lawfully, national lawfully, and international lawfully can't be presented, but you're hypocrites, you see, a bunch of mingo tamarins. That's who you are. Frederickstead is being pretty much controlled now. The waterfront is owned by outside interests because you, bunch of coons, sambos who are there in the territory trying to hold each other down. And if it's a progression and you're not acknowledging part of it, here comes that sentiment. Here comes the Willie Lynch. Some of us don't need validations from hypocrites. Some of us don't have to play the hypocritical role to acknowledge certain people to get votes or to get likeness. You speak the truth because the truth is a constant. You don't play with it. Only politicians do. So politicians would elect, and when you're doing dirty work, you're hindering liberated process and progress while you're claiming to be, and you're not. Every new effort and speaks to something that doesn't acknowledge or give credit to any of these people who think they're entitled to is always met with, where they been all the time? Who are they? Where they from? You know, all of this nonsense. And in the meantime, those of you who claim to be Fredericksteaders, you're the one decepting and pretty much discouraging the entire Virgin Islands, as far as I'm concerned. And many of you grew up on Queen Street, Frederickstead. Shame, disappointment, and to this day, still continuing to recognize an unlawful, or is it the fact that when the justice made his claim relative to the insular islands that they didn't understand Anglo-Saxon language and law, that this is proof of it, that there are a bunch of insular people who don't understand the language, because if they did do that, and they have the honor of integrity with the intelligence that they have, then there's no way they could be even thinking of entertaining it. But again, this is a colony. Years of a particular type of spirit being in certain places, again, to hold the progression of the people down. Now, you look at the condition of the territory. Look at the condition of all three islands are supposed to be one, and they're not. Who is being favored? Why is the favoring being done for more one island than the next? St. Croix is pretty much carrying the entire Virgin Islands economically, but not getting the benefit of. Why? St. John is suffering because they don't want St. John to recognize itself, because somebody intelligently played with something called the Revised Organic Act of 1954 that allowed for it because a bunch of congressmen decided that they were going to formulate to give the colony some sort of a guideline that's not a constitution, that's not laws for them. And they're laughing at best because they can't believe that it's still existing all the way in 2026 when they did it. And then you have a bunch of jokers who think that because they have the congressional records, we had the congressional records as to saying who was what and who was for it. And you know what was done with it? With us, we throw it in the garbage. And some people take pride because they have a congressional record and they could tell you, and I said this and I said that, and they get all animated. And I tell you because I know, and this is how they speak. I'm waiting right here to speak with you because there's no way in or out of hell anything that you're saying is relatively important or makes truth, only in your own mind. It is the Gregorian year of 2026. Majority of the world have recognized what the scourge of colonization is and what it does and what it's going to do through a charge of imperialism. And when collectively and organically, in a spiritual sense, we are waking up to remove that scourge of colonization, what it actually is, what it has done. Here come the imperialistic maneuvering now to do a distraction from it. And at the same time, various things are occurring where the elements, again, that brought the negative scourge into our little territory, lust for flesh, evil, murder, cannibalism, selling and value of human parts trafficking, all these things. But we Negroes here in the territory feel important because we are in election mode and we're going to change things and we're going to make sure that the utility system, the water and the power is going to be given back to the people. And we're going to make sure that the schools are up to par. And when we get in, bunch of foolishness and they're watching your face, you don't even have in 2026 fully functioning and running hospitals. Ground zero for any people, your health. Without health, forget about anything else. We don't have fully functioning hospitals, and those who are professions in the trade are doing their best with what they don't have. And every day, the more things change, the more they've conditioned you into accepting modulars now. When somebody's coming before you saying how many millions and billions of dollars they have, and yet you don't have fully functioning hospital where people are dying unnecessarily and have to leave and incur big bills that they probably don't have the monies for to go elsewhere to be treated when you could just stay at home in 2026, rather, when all these things are supposed to be have, but yet you want to sit down and believe that voting is going to do it. Not changing moralistically where you are, your moral fiber of the territory is and look like, but voting is going to do it. That's how foolish a people is. But you then can't criticize the governor because if you call him foolish, a foolish governor rules or leads a foolish people. You've been conditioned to move and they know what you're going to move and not move on. Those studies were already had, competently done by universities and special institutions that was built and designed to do that, to monitor people and their behavior. The studies already had. They don't have to worry. They know what the game plan looks like. They know what to bring before the people and when to apply them and when not to apply them. And they stay pleased because at the end of the day, the more things change, the more they remain the same. You want to know why? Because too many of us have the spirit, that spirit of curse. You love your material status. You love your little flashy things. And if it's not the little flashy things, you like the sex appeal, you like the lust for flesh that you're getting, you're benefiting from it. Or the theft. Who don't like it? Maybe you're guilty of any of these things. Correct it. Don't get angry. Correct it. You have people purporting to be honest and living a positive life, live positively on their seats. And trying to justify the theft. Live positively and you're a thief. Decide what level you want to describe a thief as. Thief is taking something that doesn't belong to you on a regular ongoing, basically. Believe in what you want to believe in your own mind as truth and what positive is. Can't speak to their children. Can't correct the children. Because there's a way you're supposed to correct the children, right? That's why the children go wayward, and that's the reason why they become poster child for certain events. People never be a respecter of persons, no matter who they are. Wrong is wrong. You have a problem where people are being recycled into jobs. Nobody's retiring and allowing for the younger people who are here trying to seek work and employment to get work. We have a top-heavy government that needs to be somewhat monitored better than it is, because there's no checks and balances, honestly, between no interagency responsibilities anywhere. The judicial system is already compromised. It is corrupt to the core, to the satanic core, the judicial system. The judges, the attorneys, corrupt to the core. But you think registering and vote is going to change that? Change the moral fiber, your moral character. Do that first. Vote and register to change that first. Because no matter what you do, if this is the culture and the traditions in the territory, in the quote unquote civilization, in the society, nothing is going to change. The more things change, the more they're going to remain the same. The new economic development zone that was introduced, and what does that look like? You want to know what the board is, who the board's members are? The transshipment port, what's the status on that? Where they have our own 5-minute city is already designed. You don't know about that. It's been long into play. With their own postal service, their own supermarkets, their own hospitals, everything is already done. This thing has already been put in place. Even before this administration has been put in place. But your mind paying attention to the local talent show to make sure that they are rewarded with top of the seats, with foolishness as to next year they're going to sit down to be in the privilege of being on a viewing stand. The aristocracy in their heads. In the meantime, the land is being taken from beneath you. And you Negroes, you Sambos, you Coons are more interested in what you think your status is on little things and accomplishments in a government that's structured by a colonizer never to please you. Or else you would have already been a state. But you see how a lot of scholars like to pride themselves with all kind of title, Dr. this and Dr. that. Come speak to me about these nonsenses that you've been claimed that they've been making. Speak to me about the importance and what the status and what the Revised Organic Act of 1954 actually is from what it isn't. Speak to me from beyond that, because people who are advocating that they have congressional records, we had those congressional records, finding out what they actually are, and you know what you know how valuable they are? Throw them in the garbage. Because at best, all you could do is speak proudly of a history of the structure of behavior and communication in a predominantly Anglo-Saxon institution that created something that you can't even get out of, but you're proud to know what the history of that is without having the need for it. You know it to be able to change it, not to be proud that you know what an Anglo-Saxon who still have his foot on your neck has decided among themselves and a status to create it to you not to do anything. This is a Sambo people. These are people that stand up in a room and all they want to do is get in the room. What have you done? What have you sacrificed to be in a room? Other than trying to take a picture of a plaque of a name, and what's that supposed to do, Negro? What have you sacrificed to do that? Do you understand that many of us refuse these offers day to day, week to week, month to month, till they just know not to stop doing it because it can't be bought and can't be sold? But for some people, relative to where they're from and how they think you got here, that's a big accomplishment. You don't speak for me, and you don't speak for we. So we're waiting until a bunch of you hypocrites who at best in 2026 refuse to part from colonialism, you bunch of neo-colonialists, to include all of you that think that these agreements that made between Anglo-Saxon bodies like treaties are of any lawful substance other than between the Anglo-Saxon states who are negotiating for the difference, for the acceptance. That's a mind and spiritual control. And who does that benefit? All treaties made by Anglo-Saxons are bogus and non-valid. Look at it. I am not making these things up. Take the value in it for what it represents, not away from what it doesn't. Seem to believe in all these Anglo-Saxon-based institutions all over the world, to include the United Nations, to include the elements at The Hague, International Court of Justice, International Criminal Court. These are all Anglo-Saxon-based and controlled institutions who at best are imperialistic in their nature and in their receipts. Who are they now to be the arbiter, the arbitration hearing of what honesty looks like and what right and what human right looks like? It's all bogus. It's how you want to free yourself, free your spirit, free your mind. And this is not a racial thing. These are fact verifiable information. Look at it. It is what it is. But you can't be so conditioned, again, you can't be so Stockholm on this that the Willie Lynch doesn't come into confusing you to reject what's being said because you are under the phenomenon and follow trying to use cognitive dissonance to get there. People, we'll be back in a few minutes. Listen to the lyrics. Jackson Brown, 60 years ago, did more things change? What remains?
I've been waiting for something to happen for a week or a month or a year, with the blood in the ink of the headlines and the sound of the crowd in my ear. You might ask what it takes to remember when you know that you've seen it before, where a government lies to a people and a country is drifting to war. And there's a shadow on the faces of the men who send their guns to the wars that are fought in places where the business interest runs. On the radio, talk shows, on TV, you hear one thing again and again, how the USA stands for freedom and we come to the aid of a friend. But who are the ones that we call our friends? These governments killing their own, or the people who finally can't take anymore, and they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone, and their lives in the balance. There are people under fire, there are children at the cannons, there is blood on the wire. There's a shadow on the faces of the men who fan the flames of the wars that are fought in places we can't even say the names. They sell us the president, the same way they sell us our clothes and our cars. They sell us everything from youth to religion. The same time they sell us our war. I wanna know who the men in the shadows are. I wanna hear.
Jen, I think I might be able to hear you now. Not sure.
I've been waiting for something to happen for a week or a month or a year, with the blood in the ink of the headlines and the sound of the crowd in my ear. You might ask what it takes to remember when you know that you've seen it before, where a government lies to a people and a country is drifting to war. And there's a shadow on the faces of the men who send the guns to the wars that are fought in places where their business interests run. On the radio, talk shows, or TV, you hear one thing again and again, how the USA stands for freedom and we come to the aid of a friend. But who are the ones that we call our friends? These governments killing their own, or the people who finally can't take anymore, and they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone, and their lives in the balance. There are people under fire, there are children at the cannons, and there is blood on the wire.
Yeah, people, we're back. And it's good. I'm getting an indication here that we're not on Facebook Live. I guess Jen will double check to see that we are on Facebook Live. They have for whatever reason, it doesn't hold, but it's okay. Because truth is a constant. It doesn't choose what political or what business agenda you have. It speaks the truth. And in these times when people are hearing what war looks like, they forgot what happened yesterday with Desert Storm. They forgot what happened with the Iraqi war. They forgot what happened with Vietnam. And I'm just calling these because these are the ones that you know that would happen in Afghanistan. And you are so disconnected from the reality of what war looks like, what it sounds like, what it smells like. You know, that little innocent babies under the lies and disguise of government who are having their brains smashed in, their little hearts, livers, and crushed, and kidneys all smothered, and that's a human being, and all you can see is body fluids. What does that look like? You don't know, right? And if there was any way that the Almighty God of righteousness could put these things in your heart and put you to experience that in real time, I would gladly sign up to have it done. Because many of you are riding this colonial ship and flying the imperialistic flag. The same energy that carried the scourge of imperialism, taking things and killing people and colonizing them to overcome and to have ownership versus stewardship of a land, that is evil to its core. And you think because you're through the years now, you're embedded into a society that's accomplished or that's built on imperialism, which is a scourge. It is murder. It is rape. It is at best terrorism in its highest form. And all of a sudden, you want people to believe, and people will come to you talking peace. Peace for what? Under and with what agenda? There can't be any peace. There can be quiet. The only peace you can speak of is a peace coming from the Almighty God of righteousness. That's two different things. The peace coming out of imperialistic state where they want you to not have any kind of war, agitation, pushback, any indifference to injustices. That's the peace that they come before you. So we don't want that peace. What we're looking for is equal rights. And you're looking for justice as far as man is concerned, because you can't ever expect to be justified through and by the laws of men. However, that's what we follow. We don't follow the laws of the Almighty of righteousness. We follow the laws of men, and you can't expect ever to be justified. And in a time now, you have people advocating to vote and register to vote and all of these things. But I can't be there with you, not because I don't accept and don't want honest change to come to a people, remedy to come. So the kind of lacking and suffering doesn't exist where we don't have a competently built and equipped hospitals in 2026, where our system of learning, the schools, are not adequately equipped, or I should say adequately equipped, and in their neighborhoods, where the water and power, the utility system is not overcharging and taxing people because you're based under a capitalistic system. Capitalistic system under what is called the United States, which is supposed to be a state under a republic, which is an agreed upon set of laws to abide by, not being done. Don't care what you think you're doing based on what you benefit from. It's not being done. It's not being accomplished. The Constitution right now, the United States is being challenged, aggressively so. But again, those of you, the sycophants, the neocolonialists, the Sambos and the Coons don't know that because you're too busy trying to fill masses seats so you can feel good, the Stockholm Syndrome. And in the process now, you're applying Willie Lynch. Economic, educational, color of skin, texture of hair, amongst each other. Friended up or not friended up, friended in, tie out, all of these things. Then you're using cognitive dissonance to try and rationalize the whole thing because you're doing what? Participating in the phenomenon of following. So in a time in 2025 when liberation is being spoken before you, of course, it's going to be met with indifference. They're going to be negative. They're going to be criticizing. I am not no professional radio host show bringing anything to you in a professional manner because I'm not a professional radio host show. So don't look to criticize how things are being done and not being done. All I like to do is my little part to bring truth. With all the difficulties of things being presented and not being presented, right? But I am not here to fight against flesh and blood. That was already tested. Give thanks for those who are praying for me and with me. When flesh came before with a negative attitude, I am not here to fight against flesh and blood. but spiritual principalities in the high places and as well as low places here. So not to challenge you, not to do this back and forth, but if I recognize you speaking a lie and telling a lie that's going to keep a people in this under this oppressive state, there's nothing good about it. It's not about any particular, and I don't like to use the word race. It doesn't have nothing to do with that. It has to do with what these facts actually are. You're either going to live by a God of righteousness or you're not going to. So me personally, you're not going to come before me and say any Almighty. You're not going to come and tell me any Most High. And you're not going to call any particular ethnic game if it's not of righteousness. Clarity is brought in that. None of us is short of making errors. I do it every day. But put my deeds and justify my actions. Justify my action. Those of you who claim to have receipts to prove differently, justify my actions in my deeds. Justify them. And if any of you honestly, I don't care who tries to put a little caveat and twist in between who was said here and back and forth, if any of you honestly want to come and represent, the test is whether or not you're willing to submit half the designated salary of any of these positions to a worthy person or persons so that progression can be made, because your intention is not to go in there to get the high salary to justify, well, he gets in here and they get, so I'm not going to give up mine. That's the problem, you see. Who was willing to go in there to cut that salary in half? Not that you can do it, but to take half of your salary and competently put it out there to someone who is going to benefit. Because in this over top-heavy government, there's a recycle of personnel and people who are friended up. They're going to get the hook up to get this work and to get this job. In the meantime, qualified people are not getting anything because of that nature. And there isn't any interagency responsibility overseeing the conduct of, and believe it or not, they have a duty to do so. But I guess if you look at how many people are in government right now, look at their receipts, look at their deeds. Many of them have been convicted of theft while being entrusted in certain departments in the government. Now everybody is entitled, I guess, for making little errors like that, if you want to call it little errors like that. But you were entrusted by the people once to do a good thief, to do a good deed, and you wind up stealing, misappropriating funds, friending up and giving the hookup to people who otherwise weren't entitled to have a job, overseeing things, the nepotism and the friendism and all this kind of stuff that's occurring in the government. The government didn't structure this. That's coming out of the people in the territory who goes into the government. It's coming out of the society, that behavior, that ideology, that spiritualism, that behavior, that all that's coming out of the territory, the society. So the government isn't there before the people. The people were always there for the government. The people created the government to collectively do their biddings. But the government now has been changed where it's the other way around, systematically done. And if you don't take the time to know what the history of the restructuring of the government in governments are based on the oligarchy and the way government was set up, you now are living this life because now we're in quote unquote election season. Everybody wants to feel important. So therefore they're electioneering for this party, for that person, for this, advocating back and forth. And the colonizer, the Satanist, the Luciferian, they're smiling because they know that's not the answer, but you taking upon yourself because you've been deprived of being able to participate. So therefore now you think that you're making a change that they already have control over, regardless of what you think you're doing. And the only change comes when we understand that we have to participate in international laws, right? You have a call, Jen?
Yes. Go ahead, caller.
Jen, you have a call?
Yes. And the only change comes.
Caller, turn on your radio and you're on live.
Okay.
Jen, do we have a call?
Yes. Go ahead, caller.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you.
Yes, he can hear you.
Okay, I'm hearing him speaking, and I'm trying to find out what would he consider to be the solution to fixing the things. He's given in general as the things that are happening, but what would be the solution? We talk about changing the senators, but if we have been changing senators, we haven't gotten no results because nobody say anything as to which senator, what senator. So I'm trying to figure out what can we do to actually change it.
Can you hear me, Jen?
Yes.
Okay, the caller wants to know what we can do, which means the caller have to listen to what I was saying. No one said about changing the senators and not changing the senators. The fact is that we have to address morally where we are, how we think. That's where the solution is. It is not simple. It's going to take time, of course, but it's whether or not you choose to keep on stealing, lying, sleeping with your neighbor, lust for flesh, who is participating in pedophilia and its events, correcting that. That's the start. That's where I would try to start morally, where we are as a people morally, right? Because if you think it's not, I have never mentioned anything about changing the 15 senators or not. I said, if you should change and swap that, I said that a couple of weeks ago, and you close your eyes, and if you select people out moralistically out of a society where the moral level is at the same, where they're into lust for flesh and theft and all of these things, you're closing your side and bringing the same set of people into these offices. So it's obviously what I'm saying is to address the moral factor in this society. That's what I'm saying. I am not generalizing anything, but I do expect these type of concerns. Listen carefully. That's the answer right there, to address the moral fiber. How many people are guilty of it? Sleeping with their neighbors in and out of relationships, sleeping with someone else's spouse, sleeping with minors to the extent where some who are advocating and agitating have actually produced child with minors. Deal with the moral fiber. That's what we have to do. Concentrating on the government offices, but the government offices is not the problem. The problem is where those who are filling the government offices are coming from, the society. So yes, we have to introduce things morally where you also, sir, would have a moral fiber. You know, not to deceive children, to encourage children into theft, lie, lust for flesh. You know all these things. We know how to sit someone down to correct them as an adult, to make sure that they go the right way, to look out for these things. We know these things. And that's where the answer is. The answer is correcting the moral fiber. If they somehow miss that, I can't, I don't know where else to go with it as far as that's concerned. But the answer is just that, your moral fiber. How many people are willing to say, well, I am willing to put myself out there to do a deep background check beyond the regular average background checks to see how many closets are actually available and what's in those closets, because I have nothing to hide and my intention is just to do good for the people. We all want that. And if to only have that is to make sure that those who are in government are the ones who are going to be hired in the jobs to do so, then let's do so from a point where you're addressing the moral fiber of the people in the society who is going to go into those offices. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if there's any misunderstanding, but that is my standing, because it's not the governor's office, it's not the senatorial offices, it's not the commissioner's offices, it's who's going in to fill those seats. What are their moral fiber? So yes, the solution is to try and counter that, because as we speak right now, the institution of learning is being minimized. They're being taken out of the neighborhood to centralize them in a small territory like this. Why we have to put children to go to school outside of their neighborhoods? Why is that? Who's designing that in a small little territory like this? Why is it that in a small territory like this, where we're having problems with utilities, water and power, why? How did it get to the point where all these monies are available for a water and power utility system, and there is no deliverance to the point where even St. John is without power for 48 hours, and they're in a place where per capita, how many millionaires, and as a matter of fact, how many attorneys are in on that particular little spot, but yet they can go without power. So what statements are you making for those who are experiencing the undermining economy? You're making a statement, it's a conditioning. So that's what we have to do. So the cure and the answer, sir, would be in addressing the moral fiber to include those churches who have been deceiving people from administration to administration and never standing up on the word of the Almighty of righteousness. I don't care what book and what book of faith you put before people. It's your deeds that's who's going to correct things, not how much chapter and verses and you could spout and speak out, because who is perfect at that is according to those scriptures, is the very same Satan, Lucifer. He could spew all these things left and right. Doesn't mean he understands or he intends to do good with it, but yeah. So all these things, even the churches are complicit in this behavior. There's judgment to come in your moral fiber. What's your intention? What is your intention? And yes, that's the answer. Yeah, we have to address the moral fiber to prevent people from who have a propensity to looking at young children, young girls and young men, to engage in them and to direct them into. And as we speak now, and as you arrest one or two, there's still people with that spiritual fiber in them who seeking to do it. There's still people who are participating in pedophilia and its related activities, walk up, gyre up, and trying to justify it because they're having carnival and festival, and they're having lewd and sexual walk up in front of children. And that too, how can you separate that from what Epstein is bringing? You can't, but you're going to try and justify it. Why? Because you're going to try and reuse cognitive dissonance to rationalize that behavior. And you're going to try to attach it to our culture and our African culture. That's nonsense, okay? And then those same people who are trying to advocate for any change, they're the first one to walk up and gyre up on anybody who's not their spouse or significant other. To what degree some of these rumors are true? In order for you to deny anything, it must exist. So yeah, caller, it is to address the moral fiber in the territory, in the society. People who are sitting in jobs that they know they don't qualify for, but they got the hookup, and then they go into these churches on Sundays, every Sunday, knowing that you have a job and in a position that you got because somebody gave you the hookup and you're not supposed to be in the job. But you come to work on Monday, Tuesday, and Friday for a job many of you don't know that you don't qualify for it, and to many degrees you don't even know the job, but you got the internal hookup based on what? Who was able to get in there to follow a particular train of thought, to cater a particular person and types of people to get and to be rewarded with the jobs based on what? It is dishonesty to the core. So yes, you have to address the society. Laws don't just break themselves. It's the people in the societies who break the laws. And too many people right now in government, part of their resume, look at how many people right now in government, part of their resume that's not listed is actually theft while they were in government, trusted by the people, first time. And do we believe in giving people second chances? Of course, but not with this. They molest your child once, you're going to say, okay, well, they molest your child once, let's give them a second. You know, it's only, no. It applies all across the board, people. Integrity. People are not going to like this because a lot of them are complicit in that particular fact. Why are we recycling people in and out of jobs when they're already at the retirement age? You have young people trying to get into work, and unfortunately, if the only work they have is an overtop government, then let the people fulfill it so that they can participate. You have young people who have done everything possible to get themselves suited, qualified for work, and they're not giving them the assignment because people got the hookup, they got the friended up who are sitting in these positions unlawfully. But it's funny because the only reason why the United States isn't in this colony and territory qualifying the population is because they have to pay more attention to that move that they're making now, which is imperialism, to satisfy the oncoming facts of one, what's happening with the sexual trafficking, the organ trafficking by all these individuals, companies, institutions who are running the world to deviate from that. Here we go, a cry for war and all as much as you can possibly can so that these truths cannot be had. So in the advent of this occurring, that's the only reason why they haven't had time to come here to qualify the population in 2026, but you're going to find them dropping in here and there to do so. And when they come to qualify the population, they're going to ask for everyone's document. And even though you have a document, they're going to question the origin of it. Know that, whether you feel comfortable or not, but they're a bit distracted right now. The colonizer, he's a bit distracted right now with trying to, cover their butts and, making sure that everyone, quote unquote, that's in that Congress, the majority who've been participating is still being in control by a Zionist party who's controlling the APAC, who is at best Satanist, is trying to divert and are in agreement of the distraction of war and rumors of war. But they're going to come into the colony to qualify it. And many of you who have a privilege, who's thinking it's a right, is going to be removed from you because right now, as it stands, they are being also questioned with documentations. But people, in the essence of time, I'm going to always ask you, remind you, never to give up your right. Never surrender your right to be given or to purchase a privilege. And all our ancestors would always remind us and tell us to do is to walk good in favor. Talk to you.
I've been waiting for something to happen for a week or a month or a year, with the blood in the ink of the headlines and the sound of the crowd in my ear. You might ask what it takes to remember when you know that you've seen it before, where a government lies to a people and a country is drifting to war. And there's a shadow on the faces of the men who send their guns to the wars that are fought in places where the business interest runs. On the radio, talk shows, or TV, you hear one thing again and again, how the USA stands for freedom and we come to the aid of a friend. But who are the ones that we call our friends? These governments killing their own, or the people who finally can't take anymore, and they pick up a gun or a brick or a stone, and their lives in the balance. There are people under fire, there are children at the cannons, there is blood on the wire. There's a shadow on the faces of the men who fan the flames of the wars that are fought in places we can't even say the names. They sell us the president the same way they sell us our clothes and our cars. They sell us everything from youth to religion, the same time they sell us our wars. I wanna know who the men in the shadows are. I wanna hear somebody asking them why.